see, right? That's the only reason I
Absolutely.
was thinking. But what are your thoughts on that?
No, you're right about that. And I think cornerback is certainly in play. I think you're absolutely right. I'm just looking at all the holes on this team, and
Right.
you know, I would try to put Derek Carr in a position to succeed, and the edge rushers, we don't have any right now. Unfortunately, the team really needs some serious upgrades there.
Yeah. So what position would you say is our fourth biggest need after guard?
Well, I think you could look at safety if you're going to factor LaMarcus Joyner in as a slot cornerback.
Right.
You could make a case for a safety. Tight end, I think, is also a need. Now, it's interesting because the old John Gruden teams, they featured Roland Williams for the most part, and his role was really mostly as a blocker. And the Raiders right now have Lee Smith and they have Derek Carrier, and they're both pretty decent blockers. But what they lost this offseason with Jared Cook is pretty significant. So I think if, they have a chance to get a big-time playmaker at tight end, they have to strongly consider it. And this is another one of those needs that I would put there because the class is really strong as well. This is definitely the year to take a tight end, whether it's in the first round or later.
Got it. Running backs. I'm looking at this. What about linebacker? I know we have two free agents, but they're both on 1-year contracts. Would it make sense to if somebody falls to us, one of the Devins in the first round falls to us, would it make sense? Would you
JB,
put that
you
as
are
one of the
100% correct. Yep. Oh, you are 100% correct. Now, I don't know if linebackers will factor in the first round or not, but this team needs to draft a linebacker to develop for down the road. Even if Brandon Marshall and Burfict work out this year, or one of them works out for this year, those guys are getting old. I mean, Burfict has already gotten old, to be quite frank about it. They need to have somebody to take over and really produce at that position because they haven't really had that in a long, long time. And I know Voshawn Joseph I saw Ian Rappaport on Twitter said that he was one of their last visits on Wednesday.
Yep.
So I would, if he is there with that 4th round pick, he is a very strong candidate to be that pick.
In the 4th, huh?
Yep.
What about a guy like, I don't know, David Long or Jermaine Pratt or Drew Tranquil? I don't know. I'm not sure what they would prefer. I'm guessing they prefer a linebacker who can cover, because we are lacking in that area. Voshawn Joseph, would you say he's a better coverage guy than the other 4th rounder linebackers?
Yes. So he's definitely a candidate at the will linebacker position. He's very athletic. He would be able to cover backs and tight ends out of the backfield. I think David Long, who you mentioned from West Virginia, would be another solid addition. He'd be more in play, in my opinion, in the 5th round range. He is a true Sam linebacker. He's going to give you a lot of support in the run game. He's not going to do much in the pass game. The player comp that I actually have had for him is Tyre Whitehead.
Yeah.
He's sort of that same type of player where he's really going to help you in the run game, but he's not going to cover anyone. You mentioned Drew Tranquil. Drew Tranquil is another player who I like. I wonder if the Raiders don't have a 6th round pick this year. Right. I wonder if he gets to the 7th round. And it's conceivable that he could be there in the 7th round, he'd be a solid choice just because he's going to be a core special teams player. So you could draft him. He'd be a backup, but he'd be, part of your core special teams for his entire rookie contract. I'd feel pretty confident saying he would make the team. And then the other one you mentioned, Jermaine Pratt. So Jermaine Pratt, I'm having a really hard time with him because, the other guy who helps me run the site, Ray, is really high on Pratt, and I can see why. He's got good film. He's athletic. He could potentially be a 2nd-round pick. I am bothered by his performance at the Senior Bowl. The whole week, he was just not good. He wasn't good. And he didn't look like a guy who I would want and on the draft's second day. So for me, he would be in consideration in the 4th round. I don't know if he's going to be there, though. And I certainly think that 35 is too high for him. And then one more guy who I have to mention, I love Terrell Hanks. I'm having a hard time getting where. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about him a lot, on Twitter. I'm having a really hard time getting a grasp on where he's going to get picked because he was great during Senior Bowl week. He's athletic. He reminds me of Darius Leonard. Now, does that mean he's going to be an All-Pro and Defensive Rookie of the Year? No. I mean, probably not. But he's that same type of player. And I've seen a lot of rankings online where he's sort of gotten pushed down because of his combine performance, but his combine performance was essentially running a 40-yard dash attempt and pulling his hamstring. And so he had a poor time. I think it was 4.99 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, he definitely does not look that slow in the film. So
right. And I saw the attempt. He literally pulled his hamstring during the attempt, which certainly explains the slow time. I still like him. I think if he's there with their 4th round pick, on my board, I've got him over Joseph and Pratt. But who knows? I mean, perhaps he's there in the 5th round. I think if he is, he'd be an excellent investment.
Yeah. So running down the list, we like Voshon Joseph. We like Terrell Hanks. Terrell Hanks, is he more of a Mike-like linebacker, or would you say he can play Will as well?
Yeah, I think he's Mike or Will, and I like him better than Joseph. I think that the Raiders are very interested in Voshon Joseph, though. I think that coming from that organization, he is somebody who I would almost expect them to pick him if he's there with that 4th round pick.
And Terrell Hanks, I guess you have him as a 3rd or a 4th round pick as well?
Yes. So I'm still trying to gather information on him. I know it is pro day. He didn't run the 40. He did positional drills. Apparently he looked pretty good. I know he's taken some visits to different teams. And I just need to get a grasp on how he's viewed around the league. When I saw him, though, I saw a top 100 pick for certain. So, he's just someone I know we're on to the week of the draft. And I know that I like him and my evaluation of him is done. But I still have extra work to do, though, to try to figure out where the league views him. Because I'm just not sure now.
Yeah, there was another guy who did really well in the combine, and that's the guy from, I forget his name. He is the linebacker from it's not Wisconsin. It's I forget. He is.
He's the guy from Wisconsin. Ryan Connolly's about a 5th or 6th round pick.
No, not Wisconsin. It's one of those states up there. It's not Okariki, although he's high somewhere. Blake Cashman from Minnesota. I haven't watched this tape, but he performed really well in the combine. What are your thoughts on him?
I could be way off base on this. I think he is going to go a lot lower than people expect.
Yeah.
He's had 4 surgeries on his shoulder in the last year and a half. I think that that's going to take him off some boards medically, and I think it's going to push him into day 3 for sure. But, it only takes one team. So
right.
I've been wrong before, but I really think that he's the type of guy where maybe you take him in the 5th or 6th round because you like his talent, but you're worried about, how long he's going to hold up. I kind of think of the classic example really is Jay Ajayi, the running back. He was viewed as being a late 1st round running back or early 2nd round.
Yeah.
He ended up getting picked, I believe, in the 5th round, and it was just, his knee was fine, but a previous injury had made it so that teams weren't sure how long his knee was going to hold up. They thought he might have a short career. Last year, the cornerback that the Jets drafted had the same type issue. Perry Nickerson.
Okay.
They got a good player on day 3 because teams aren't sure how long he's going to hold up. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what's going on with Blake Cashman's shoulder, but 4 surgeries in a year or a year and a half on the same shoulder doesn't seem like news. And I think that if you're going to look at one of those types of players who maybe has some durability concerns or some medical flags, the guy that I really like is Porter Gustin for USC. So Porter Gustin has just been a terrific player when he's been on the field. He's averaged almost a sack per game the last couple of years. The coaches absolutely love him. He's talked about as being a leader. He had a great combine. He's athletic. Apparently, he takes really good care of himself. Unfortunately, he's barely played over the last couple of years because of an assortment of injuries.
Yeah.
But I think there's a guy, and again, he's not a linebacker in a 4-3 like the Raiders play. He'd be an edge player. There's a guy where I think if you could get him in the 5th round, you could end up looking back a year or 2 from now and saying, wow, how did this guy fall? But he's got to stay healthy.
Gotcha. Okay, let's move our way up the rankings. Let's go with safety. Now, the safeties we have are pretty short. Our Carl Joseph, LaMarcus Joyner, those would probably be the starters, and we also have Eric Harris, who's probably around 5'11". We couldn't cover the tight end for the last couple of years, getting burned by all the tight ends around the league, especially the guy from the Chiefs. Who do we have? Yep. Which safety would fit the Raiders the best, do you think? And be a bigger body?
Well, the one who immediately comes to mind is Juan Thornhill from Virginia. I think if you look at maybe 35 overall, if the Raiders decide to use that pick on a safety, Juan Thornhill is a big athletic guy from Virginia, and he's got cover ability. He's sort of worked his way up a lot of boards as the process has gone along with a couple other safeties. Now, you've got Darnell Savage from Maryland, but I don't think he's a fit for the Raiders because I think he's too similar to LaMarcus Joyner. He's a little bit smaller. He's the type of guy you're going to put in the slot to cover smaller receivers.
Same with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as well, right? He seems similar to LaMarcus Joyner.
Certainly, absolutely. Yep, you're absolutely right about that. He's like a nickel corner almost. He played a position at Florida actually called the star position, where he wasn't a true safety there. He sort of played in the slot and moved around a little bit. And you're right. So he wouldn't really be a fit for the Raiders either. He actually struggles with tackling too. Another one for maybe the 4th round pick would be Mike Edwards from Kentucky.
Yep.
So Mike Edwards is a little bit bigger. He's a little bit skinnier, but he's tall. And he plays in the slot as well. So he played in the slot at Kentucky. And another guy who we talked about yesterday, Joe Juan